impossible has happened! Unbelievable! No record for human life! Off to the races, can they catch it?
Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms. Bare-chested. Somebody stop
Look
that
out,
man.
here comes the blue coat,
Oh,
Kevin.
they got him.
Here
They're
comes the
coming
blue
from the
coats.
left. Oh, and they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
And now for our feature presentation.
Balls Deep with Devin Jovan.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Balls Deep. Today we're going to get into some news about the NBA, college football, NFL, boxing, UFC, soccer.
Damn, just list it off,
That
bro.
was it?
That shit is long ass list.
I don't know. My fault.
Just restart it, bro. Don't list it off.
That's what I'm doing.
Don't list it off. Just be like, we're going to start off by the episode we're talking about some of the latest NBA news.
What's going on?
What the fuck are you showing me?
Because you weren't ready. Alright.
I was ready. I was just looking at you because I was talking.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a new episode of Balls Deep Podcast, episode 15. We're going to start this episode talking about the NBA. Some, fresh news going on in the bubble. We got some Clippers Damian Lillard drama that was going on after Dame missed 2 free throws at the end of the game, and he was getting mocked by Patrick Beverley over Dame time. So what's going on, man?
Dudes is just a bunch of haters.
Clowning on my man's Dame.
Yo, dudes is haters because Dame knocked him both of them out of the playoffs last year. First he beat Beverly when he was on the Rockets.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, and then he beat Paul George, jawed him from deep, and to send
it was a bad shot.
To send the Thunder home.
It was a bad shot.
It was a bad shot. He made it, but it was a bad shot.
It was a bad
so
shot.
I think they're just a bunch of haters. As much as I love Dame, I'm happy that he missed the shots, because it's just gonna make him more motivated. Because he doesn't take things lightly. I mean, he's not really taking the hate like that. I think he's just gonna put it in his play and ball out like he's did in the game after. But the Clippers just try to do the Lakers filthy, because they were talking about how they hope Portland gets the 8th seed because they think that they can knock the Lakers out of the playoffs. So what they did was they took Paul George out of the fourth quarter and didn't have him play. And I think Kawhi didn't play that game, or even if he did, he didn't play the fourth quarter. So they purposely try to throw the game, and that's why they were surprised that Damian Lillard missed those free throws, because they pretty much were giving him the game and he missed, and the Clippers ended up winning, so the strategy kind of went against them. But
I mean, it kind of speaks to the mindset of the Clippers right now, kind of worrying about what's going on with a team that they could, probably, it's more probable that they face down the road and they're trying to get another team to eliminate them first. It kind of shows the mindset that they're at right now. Clearly, they don't want to see the Lakers.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when you're that good a team, it'd be cool to get the easiest road, but at the same time, championship level mindset. I mean, you beat who's in front of you.
Yeah, I don't think the Clippers are, their mind is on track, or what, they're not focusing on the right things at hand. Like, yeah, they're trying to, get the matchups set up so that it plays in their favor, but with the Lou Williams news happening prior and then now this, I think they just need to focus on building chemistry and camaraderie to, benefit them. They need to worry about themselves first and foremost if they plan on, competing for a championship. With everything going on in that franchise, I don't think like they're gonna make it far or make it as far as everyone thinks they will.
Yeah, ultimately, I just think that the Clippers, they really need to focus on just winning basketball games at this point, because especially coming out of a player like Damian Lillard, it's kind of weird that he gets so much hate. Honestly, he's one of my favorite players.
I love the guy.
Probably in my opinion the most underrated player in the league.
He doesn't get enough love.
Oh, I don't think so. And I mean, clearly we see that the Clippers have a much deeper team, than the Trailblazers do. I mean, it's
For
right.
sure.
It's there in front of your face, and for the game to be as close as it was, and for Dame, I mean, he kind of always does it that way. And credit to C.J. McCollum and the rest of the guys as well. They all play very well, but it always seems like Dame's kind of going up against these teams that he shouldn't be beating, and he's playing very well, and most of the time getting these wins. So, it was kind of weird to me, but at the same time, that's Patrick Beverley.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Beverley always that player to trying to get in your head. Paul George, it was weird to see him speak out, especially with the history that he has with Damian Lillard. And then they took it to social media, and I know like his fiance or wife or whatever got into it and called his I think it was Damian Lillard's sister a cow, and Damian Lillard's sister, made a video talking about like she don't want the static basically. So it was just weird to see the families get involved. It was just the whole drama was ridiculous in my opinion. I don't think it should even happen, but in the end, Damian Lillard is the better player. He's better than both of them, and he's proved it, and I think he's going to continue to prove it in the end. So as much as as a Laker fan, I don't want to see the Blazers in the playoffs. I think that's the team that the Lakers are going to end up playing, and coming into the bubble, they were down like 4 games. They made it this far, so they're about half a game out of second place, or the 8th seed, I should say. So they're going to end up having that matchup, that tiebreaker to go in, and I think they're going to be the team to come out on top and take that 8th seed.
Speaking of the 8th seed, we got the Suns, who as of today are 7-0 in the bubble.
That boy Devin Booker.
They need to go 8-0 and still need help after then to make that 8th, 9th seed game, I believe. So what do you think happens there? Like, Devin Booker's on a tear.
I mean, the NBA talked about, I think it was just yesterday or today, they talked about coming out with awards just for the bubble and the performances in the bubble. And if it came down to MVP of the bubble, it's down to Devin Booker and TJ Warren, just because they've both been on a tear. But I would lean towards Devin Booker because it was a 60-1 odds that the Suns made the playoffs going into the bubble, and Devin Booker has them he's lead the charge, and they're 7-0, and they only have 1 game left. So no one expected this from the Suns, and I think he ultimately will win like the most valuable player in the bubble. I think he's been the best player in the bubble, and
not to mention the Suns wouldn't even be in this position right now without him. Prior to the bubble, they would not be undefeated in this bubble without him, and also when they needed TJ Warren the most, he vanished.
Oh, because that boy, Jimmy Butler had him on
Had him on lock.
And I mean, that's going to be a matchup in the playoffs because they're 4th and 5th seed. So with the beef, it's going to be a big storyline for the playoffs. I hope he shows up in the playoffs against the Heat because it'll make things a lot more interesting. But Jimmy Butler and don't play no games when it comes to T.J. Warren. Like he said in the past, that man's soft.
And he proved it.
Yeah,
he locked him up.
I mean, he came back from his injury, and did what he had to do to help them win. So it is what it is. I mean, T.J. Warren still is proven that he's not as appreciated as people may have thought. It might be the atmosphere that's why he's balling out, but you got to give him his credit where it's due. But Devin Booker is just on another level at the moment. He's been more consistent because they're 7-0.
No, definitely. I mean, it's going to be interesting with these last couple games. Some teams I believe have one game left currently. Some have two. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And where teams actually land, because I believe every team is within like a game or even a half of each other.
Yeah.
So
that 4-team race for the 8th seed is getting mighty. I don't even know what to call it.
Control. It's gonna be a wild one.
It's
obviously,
too close.
We're gonna have to wait and see what the outcome is, and actually see who gets that 8th versus 9th seed game that the NBA kind of decided to have if it was within 4 games.
And they were saying, as a fan, it seems very interesting because it's more entertainment. But as a player or a coach, like being, for example, the Lakers, they're in a situation where they would have got home court advantage should they have been in normal circumstances. But with this, they don't get home court advantage, and now when the playoffs are determined, they're going to be the one team that doesn't know their matchup, or which team that they are going to match up with, because everyone else is going to have their matchup, and then the 8th seed and 9th seed have to duel it out for that 8th seed or that playoff spot to ultimately play the Lakers. So they're at a disadvantage not knowing their opponent, and they're not getting home court. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the Lakers, they did play yesterday, and they beat the Nuggets. They looked a lot better offensively. Kyle Kuzma hit a nice buzzer beater go-ahead shot right before the buzzer with, I believe, a second or maybe even just under a second on the clock left. They looked a lot better. Yeah, they looked a lot better offensively.
That boy Kuzma balled out all game.
Yeah, dog. I mean, AD was looking like a monster with a bunch of putback dunks and alley-oop dunks that he was just flexing.
Bro, he's been chewing all season, but in particularly, he's been carrying the Lakers in the bubble. I mean, he's been our most consistent player, I should say. And if the Lakers are they happen to win the championship, I think he's gonna win Finals MVP. But the Lakers look the best they have in the bubble offensively. Defensively, they look terrible. That's a different story. Just because none of the Nuggets' key players played in the fourth quarter, and it was pretty much their second and third stringers because of the injuries that they're dealing with that were playing, and they still, kept it close against the Lakers, who are the number 1 team in the West when they had their players. So defensively, they need to, fix some things, but offensively, they look the best they have, and I think part of that is because they, were setting Kuzma up for, and including him in the offense a lot more. They weren't AD and LeBron and have him in the shadows. They were integrating him into what they had going on, and all 3 players ate. I mean, it just
even on the last shot, it was a setup play for Kuzma.
That was a great play.
Yeah,
it was a great play coming out of the timeout to set him up, because he was open, and even with Bol being how tall he is, he still wasn't even able to defend it because of the play got him that open, especially with the pick with AD.
It was a great play. And also, it's going to be interesting. Kuzma was starting yesterday due to KCP being, resting because of an injury.
I hope he continues to start.
And so it's going to be very interesting to see whether the Lakers go forward with him starting or not. I mean, that's the best they've looked offensively since the start of the bubble. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see if they do continue to move forward with that same starting lineup.
And they can't. If the Lakers want to continue to look that good, I think they need to utilize him more so that he's not a. So he's not a spot up shooter. He can have the ball in his hand and do what he does best, utilize his strengths. But with that, we can move on. But before I do that, shout out to Isaiah. He called that buzzer beater. He was like, I think Kuzma's gonna hit a buzzer beater, and then next thing you know, Kuzma hit a buzzer beater. But
shouts out to Isaiah for calling that buzzer beater then.
I know he called me up on FaceTime and was like, it's about to happen. So shout out to you. But with that, we're going to move on to a lightning round, or just, some quick news that we have going on within the sports world. First being that the Mike Tyson-Roy Jones fight, got postponed. It's no longer happening in September. Tyson's, his team moved it back to November because they feel like they're going to make more money in November. I don't know what for, but they're there for a reason. I mean, we're still getting the fight, so it's not canceled. It's just postponed, pushed back. I guess it's going to build a little bit more anticipation marketing-wise. I still think what we talked about, how it's going to end that way, but...
Yeah, I mean, it could also be giving things the opportunity to maybe gain a little bit more normalcy, giving that extra month. So it'd definitely be interesting to see, maybe what can change within that month. So maybe, who knows, maybe fans by November are allowed, or maybe even at a minimum. So it'd be interesting to see what that extra month does for them, money-wise and just in general, fight-wise.
Yeah, and then moving on from that, we have some NFL news. I know there's a couple news dealing with the Washington football. I know we've talked about them a lot because it's super chaotic within that franchise. The first being that some crazy news happened again. Darius Geis, a running back that they just drafted not that long ago, he had a promising future in the NFL, and he just dealt a lot with injuries. And when he was on the field, and they just released him, he was dealing with some news off the field.
It was a domestic abuse case.
Yeah, and some strangulation. I know on social media I've seen that he shouldn't have been strangling his girl. I mean, no one should, but he should have been strangling his doctor because he couldn't stay on the field. So that's that. I mean, we were just talking about Ron Rivera and him trying to change the culture, and without hesitation they released him. They didn't even wait for it to play out. So he's gone. He's out of here.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, we get a full investigation and we know exactly what happened. You hate to see, a young guy like that throw away his future.
Yeah.
So really, we're just kind of waiting to see what the news that comes out on this story. Like he said, I mean, Washington released him with the quickness. It'd be interesting to see if any team really even gives him another look.
After
a lot of teams, especially since the Ray Rice case, have been very adamant on not having those kinds of players on their team. So
for sure,
obviously we'll see what happens with the investigation, but it'd be interesting to see if he gets another shot.
I mean, moving on to another player that has some history with domestic violence, Reuben Foster. He's on the Washington franchise team as well. He dealt with domestic violence cases while he was a member of the 49ers franchise. The Washington franchise picked him up on waiver. He also has a promising future, so they activated him recently. He still has a promising future, so if he continues to play on the field that he had prior, that defense should look a little bit more interesting because they do have some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, and with Ron Rivera being a defensive coach, that's just another weapon that can prepare them to look a lot more competitive.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good pickup. I mean, Washington has a lot of holes on that team. He's going to be a very good veteran presence for that defense, especially. So, like you said, Ron Rivera is going to be big on culture. It's going to be good to have Reuben Foster in there, veteran leadership. A guy who's been there, done that, somebody who's going to be that locker room guy. So, although he has had issues in the past, it will be interesting to see how he fits on that team and if he can, amplify the voice and, the culture in the building.
Yeah, and with more football news, the Giants, they have Deandre Baker on their team, and we talked about this situation in the past on a prior episode. But the Florida police, they decided to acquit all the charges against Quinton Dunbar, so he's free to participate in team activities now. So good for the Seahawks. He's gonna help them out defensively. He was definitely a big piece that they acquired in a trade with the Washington franchise, but DeAndre Baker is not off the. He's not cut loose from the situation. Like they're still continuing to charge him with those 4 charges that they had mentioned, which blows my mind. I want to know what evidence that they have against him that they acquitted Dunbar but not him. But as a result, the Giants moved forward and signed Ross Cockrell off the free agency market to replace him as a veteran presence on the outside. With Cockrell, underrated player. He can play outside. He can play inside. He was part of the Giants franchise a couple years back. He played well for them, but he's gotten better since. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out. I was kind of bummed that they didn't go for Logan Ryan, being that he's still available and he has ties with Joe Judge from the Patriots, and he's a lot more versatile.
Honestly, it's interesting because there's not really much going on with the DeAndre Baker and Quinton Dunbar situation as of right now. It just seems like Dunbar, like you said, he's kind of just been acquitted on all charges. So, I mean, there's really not much to know as of right now. So, I'm just as curious as you to see, what exactly do they have on him that they don't have on Dunbar, and where is this gonna go? How is it gonna affect DeAndre Baker's future? So that's really just what I'm trying to keep my eye on is when this news comes out, and what exactly is going on, because there's still so many unknowns about it.
Yeah. So I mean, I hope I hope Baker gets this thing settled and he can continue his career, whether that's with the Giants or without. But I just hope things get situated in terms of the circumstances. If he did happen to do it, then it is what it is. It was on him ultimately that acted out that way.
He shouldn't have done it, and obviously it's nobody's fault but his own if it comes to be true.
But he's innocent till proven guilty, so we shall see. And we'll be back with some more news about some college football and what has panned out over the weekend.
Yeah. What? We're going to have a season? Are we not? We're going to talk about it.
Yo, what's up, everybody? King Triple C here. The Olympic champ, the flyweight champ, and the bantamweight champion of the world. In other words, the GOAT. The greatest of all time. Meh. That's right. Anyhow, I want to give a special shout out to Devin and Jovan. I know you guys have started your podcast, Balls Deep, with Devin and Jovan. I want to congratulate you guys, and I want to tell everybody that's out there that doesn't know about them to you guys follow them, subscribe to them, and you guys make sure to follow them on all your social media platforms, because if you don't, you guys can bend the knee to Triple C.
All right, we're back with some more Balls Deep. We're going to talk about college football. I know we ended last episode talking about how college football might not happen. It might. And we talked about all the schedule releases that these conferences had in the FBC. But over the weekend, things changed. I mean, at the end of last week, they released their schedule. And at the beginning of this week, there's questions that, college football might not happen. So the fate of the college football is on the brink. I mean, over the weekend, it was released that a rare heart condition that could be linked with the coronavirus is fueling concern among Power 5 conferences administrators about the viability of college sports this fall, which is why, these conferences are thinking about it or questioning whether they should continue. I know this heart condition has a lot of, or there's college players around the country that have tested positive for it. So this becomes more concerning. Are these players safer with the like with their football team, or are they safer without in terms of at home with their families? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think we all know where they're safer. They're obviously going to be safer at home. But you do feel for these college athletes. They put in so much work. Justin Fields, quarterback of the Ohio State, my Buckeyes said, there's been too much work put in. Like, we want to have the season, we want to play. So you feel for the college kids, obviously. Like I said it in the past. It's tough to picture kids. It's tough to picture these student athletes not in classes yet on, playing on game days. It's hard to visualize that. But you also have to understand their point of view, These guys are playing to get to the next level. And even Joe Burrow said it actually on Twitter. He said, if this happened a year sooner, he wouldn't have a job. He'd be looking for a job right now. Nobody really knew who Joe Burrow was until his last season there at LSU.
Yeah.
He was a transfer from Ohio State. There was a lot of unknowns about him. And then here he has this miraculous season at LSU. If COVID happens last year, nobody sees that. Nobody sees that season. So that's something that a lot of college athletes, especially seniors, are kind of having to deal with right now. Is like having that one last opportunity, or maybe even their first opportunity, to get to show who they are and put their name out there in order for them to secure a job for the future. So you definitely feel for these athletes, and you hope that that the NCAA can figure out how to have a season and make it as safe for these players as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think a college football season was going to happen, especially with a lot of FCS schools canceling out, and now some FBC or FBS schools, deciding to opt out of the season. I didn't think there was going to be one. I was surprised that they were, moving forward with that. But now teams are, either canceling fall sports, and that includes football, or they're postponing it. I know I was watching on TV, the Ohio State coach was on TV advocating for them to have a season. I feel for the players as well. But I think this is the right decision to either cancel or postpone fall sports. But I do think postponing it at the very least for now and seeing how it plays out. So leaving the window open for them to play it out in the spring, and then come springtime if they need to cancel it, so be it. But just giving them that option, I think, is best, because college football players have worked hard to make it this far, and there's players like Joe Burrow who need to still make a name for themselves so they can get to the next level. I'd hate to be a senior, and ultimately their senior campaign gets canceled because of what's going on. So if there's a way of having college football, I think they should keep that window open.
Yeah, definitely. And there was some news, rumors that the Big Ten did already decide to either cancel or postpone their fall season. But also the ACC and the SEC said their plans have gone unchanged. They still plan on going with their, I believe it was 11 games schedule and a 10-game schedule.
Yeah, it's conference only.
Yeah, so conference only schedule. So they were planning to go on business as usual.
I think that should change soon, though.
Yeah, and other conferences are still kind of up in the air as of right now.
Yeah, they're contemplating. I just want to see what this plays out for the NFL draft if they do move it on to the spring, because the NFL draft typically happens at the end of April, beginning of May. But with them playing in spring, or if it happens to if they happen to play in spring, is that going to get pushed back? Because with the NFLPA, they have an agreement saying that the draft's going to happen no later than, I think, the first week of June.
Yeah.
So, in order for that to change, the players would have to agree to it. So, I'd be interested to see the effects that it has on the NFL draft should they play in the spring. But I hope that they do play, and we have some sort of normalcy going on in the world, and not just sports.
Yeah. No, I think really it's all about. I think if they can find a safe way for the players to play this season, like I said, they should. But it's kind of to touch on something that I said last week with the XFL. It'd be interesting to see how that all plays out with the XFL. Like we said, a guy like Joe Burrow, who wouldn't have been known, now a guy like that is going to have to settle for maybe going to the XFL next year or in the near future of whenever it comes back. So it'd be interesting actually to see how things like that play out, and maybe if that comes into play, and with the NFL pushing forward maybe to come together or to terms with a deal with the XFL to actually get something like that going.
Yeah.
So that actually might be, the first thing that gets that train going is all these players missing out on the opportunity to play in a senior season or, a season that might be really important to them and their future career.
That definitely would be
interesting to see how that will have an effect on the XFL and actually how many players, end up playing for it.
That would be interesting. One thing that I also seen was with the SEC and ACC, continuing their plans as normal or as planned. These players that their season already got canceled or postponed, so like their season is in question. Maybe those players transfer to schools where they do plan on playing. So maybe if the ACC and SEC continue to play, there's going to be more players, transferring there so they can get their senior year over with, or players on the brink like Joe Burrow to kind of get an opportunity to get to the next level. So it's interesting to see what happens moving forward. I just hope the players ultimately get what they want and it all pans out for everyone. But they gotta make a safe environment for these players, especially with them being amateurs and not getting paid. It's a lot more concerning. And like Nick Saban said, there's no concern about these players going back to school and going these classes. They're more likely to catch the COVID-19 on campus than with the football team. So it's interesting. Basically, they're calling out college football, and he said if they're returning to school, they should be able to return to football. So I just am interested to see what goes on. I know you are too. But with that, we're gonna move on, and after the break, we're gonna talk about some soccer news. Our first time we talk about soccer on the show. We'll definitely be inviting one of our good friends and a normal face to the show. And then to follow that, we'll talk some more sports.
Yeah, we're going to talk some UFC as well. And we're going to talk about our picks for this upcoming heavyweight clash that we got going on this upcoming Saturday. So stay tuned after the break to hear about our thoughts.
All right, and we're back with some soccer news. With that being said, we're going to introduce a familiar face to the show. Welcome, Nico. How are you doing today?
Hello, guys. Good.
Stunting on him with the
I'm recovered from Corona now, finally.
Stunting on him with the ball head.
Oh, yeah.
So, since last episode, there's been some big soccer news. Juventus and Real Madrid were eliminated from the Champions League. And with that, Ronaldo and Sergio Ramos and company are out of, the playoffs. And we've moved on to the quarterfinals. And let's talk about it. What do you think about, these big names being eliminated from the playoffs and the rumors that Ronaldo might be going to PSG?
I kind of read that. I read that rumor with his agent speaking to PSG. That move would be insane, considering they already have a lot of talented players. They have Mbappe, they have Neymar, they have Di Maria. So obviously that would be a huge move, a costly move for them. Obviously, so they have to be ready to spend big money. And depending on Neymar's situation, because there was rumors he was wanting to go back to Barcelona, but I also did hear that it was a hope of his to be able to also play with Ronaldo someday. So that could be huge. Like I said, considering who they have already to have that trio of Mbappe, Neymar, and Ronaldo would just be insane,
Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Too much talent on the field.
So
Yeah, I don't think that's possible.
that's true. I don't know if it's possible either.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but
like I'm excited to see what happens. And Juve actually just changed their coach as well after taking the loss in the Champions League round of 16. So I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces on that team right now. So we have to kind of see how things fall into place and go from there.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy that Madrid and Juve were out, but I did actually predicted they were gonna leave the Champions League after their first game. Uh, the, Juve have been playing really bad, even though I think they have the best like team overall in Europe, in my opinion. They weren't playing good, so once they lost the first game, I really didn't see them coming back, and I mean they have Ronaldo, and he could always score 3 goals if he feels like it. But even then, it's you can't put it all on one player. And I said they were gonna come back, and I mean they won, but that away goal in Champions League kills you
Yeah.
sometimes. And same with Real Madrid. I mean Real Madrid, they were probably my favorites to win if they didn't lose the first game against Manchester City. I said they weren't gonna come back from it, and they
What a
didn't. Because
homer.
it was too much. Yeah, it was too much. It was too big of a comeback to do against Manchester City. So yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, I mean Lyon and Manchester City are good teams. So we'll see what happens. Now Manchester City becomes a favorite too. So
Well, with us moving on to the quarterfinals, what Nico? What is your favorite matchup that you're looking forward to?
well, I mean, there's a lot of interesting matchups, but it has to be the Bayern Barca. That's a such a huge name. So I just I wanna see if Messi could actually, show his greatness and win because Barca haven't been
The
playing
goat.
good. Yeah. With that being said, he's not gonna come. He's not gonna beat Bayern. Bayern is the most complete team right now, and they've been playing good. They have the best player in the world right now. Nah, I'm joking, but they have Lewandowski, which I mean, if we're being honest, he's probably like top five players in the world right now. I'm
Yeah.
not even exaggerating. He has I think the most goals in Europe right now, and the whole Bayern team is just so good. I just don't and the fact that Barca have been playing bad, I just don't see them beating them in well, it's only one game, but even then. But with that being said, again, Messi is Messi, and if he feels like it, he will beat you by himself. But I still think it's too much for him. It's gonna be too much for him this time, anyways. But that's the game I want to watch the most because of the names.
Yeah, I mean, considering it's kind of like you said. Honestly, that's my favorite matchup. It's kind of hard not to pick that matchup. Um, out of the 8 teams currently left, other than City, those two are probably the biggest favorites. So that's obviously a huge matchup in itself. And like Nico said, having one of the best players in the world, the best player in the world, on in that matchup itself makes it that much more interesting. But to speak a little bit on what Nico said, it's kind of funny hearing him say, Messi's got to kind of beat Bayern, and it's funny that he says that, but it's kind of it speaks to kind of what has happened with Barcelona in the past, where it seems like it's just Messi, and in big stages, a lot of his teammates aren't really. They kind of flop when it comes to the big stages. So I think that's the biggest thing they're gonna have to overcome is what are we past Messi? Like aside from Messi, what do we have? What kind of team are we? If they figure that out, they can definitely beat Bayern Munich. But the issue is where it's just relying on Messi, as great a player as he is. It's a team sport. 11 men on the field. It's going to be tough for them to beat that team because that team has always been talented through and through. It's not a team that has, although Lewandowski is a top 5 player, it's not that team that relies so heavily on one guy as does, Barcelona. So it's gonna be
Yeah.
huge to see how how his teammates fare in these big stages, and like I said, where they haven't really fared so well in the past.
Yeah, with that being said, I think their biggest problem right now is their defense. Like they still have Suarez and even Griezmann if he feels like he could have a great game, but and now that it's only one game, but it's just they weren't playing good at all. That in the Liga they didn't play good, and with and not also that, but their defense just didn't look like solid. And against a team like Bayern, like small teams from La Liga were tying with them, beating them,
Yeah.
and that's Bayern's not gonna let you do. Like Bayern's gonna, he's gonna score. They're gonna score the goals they have to score. So that's what I'm saying. If they could have a solid defense, they could do damage up front, but they're gonna have to be solid on defense. So that's I think that's the biggest issue for them right now. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, without going into detail, is there another matchup that you guys are looking forward to outside of the Barcelona Bayern matchup?
Well, the PSG game is for me. I want to see. They always choke, so they always every single year they just
Sure.
they buy. They spend so much money and they cannot win the champ. Like they cannot even make it far. Like and they have such a good team. So, but this time they have a really great chance. They have Atalanta, as good as they play, they are not as talented, and then also with Atletico, Atletico, they have a good chance of making it too, and that would be a great semifinal in between, PSG Atletico, and that would be a big test for PSG if they could if they could beat Atlanta. So, I want to see how they play, and Mbappe is supposed to be, he might be coming off the bench, and that's a huge plus. So yeah, I want to see the PSG how they perform because I like their team, so I want them to actually do good. I want to see what they can do.
Would you agree?
Um, I'm kind of on the fence between that one or Man City versus Leon. What Nico said. I think as talented a team as PSG is, and I've mentioned the names earlier. Um, I think that team. Not to say he is the best player on the team, although he can make a case. I think that team only goes as far as Neymar takes them.
My God.
Because I think, in my opinion, depending on what Neymar you get, meaning are you gonna get that consistent Neymar that can has the potential to be the best player in the world, or even like just top three, or are you gonna get that inconsistency that he's known for? At times, not always.
Yeah.
So I think honestly that's the biggest thing for PSG is what are you gonna get out of Neymar, and then just for the Man City Lyon matchup, obviously City is a huge favorite. They're a favorite in the field in general. But obviously coming off a nice upset against Juve, I'd love to see how well Leon can do against Man City, and the possibility of maybe them upsetting a team, especially when it's now switched to one game rather than
Yeah,
having the two
exactly.
games. It's a lot
Yeah.
easier to get those outcomes, and that's another thing with the PSG Atlanta matchup that I forgot to mention is a lot of the times it's that second leg um, that PSG kind of messes up on and ends up blowing the lead or choking, as Nico said. So that that kind of
So it's more in their favor.
yeah, it gives a little bit. It kind of makes things a lot more exciting, because a lot more can. It's weird because a
Oh
lot more
yeah.
can
Oh yeah.
happen in one game than can happen in two. Honestly.
Bro, that's the best way to do it, man. Just one game.
Yeah.
Imagine the NBA playoffs
Yeah.
being one game. Like every game is to the fullest. You
Yeah.
can, so yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it's the funnest way.
Yeah,
Is one game.
definitely. And like I said,
Exactly.
it's a weird way to put it, but a lot more can happen in one game than in two, because when you have those
Yeah.
extra chances, that's where things start to get a little weird sometimes, or even just out of hand. So
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to my next question. So who are some key players you guys think can catapult their teams to the finals? I know you guys mentioned Neymar. Let's see whether he can, show up and be that player to carry you, or will he, choke? Or you guys also mentioned Messi being able to carry Barcelona so far, but it's usually those other players that need to step up. Or can it be you mentioned Mbappe coming off the bench, for PSG? Like, who are some key players that, in your guys' mind, that need to step up, or are those players that can catapult their team to the playoffs or the finals, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them, big names that I feel like they would make a huge impact. For example, obviously Messi is the obvious one, like, but we already know, he could do it, So I think more than him, maybe for me, Mbappe is actually more important than Neymar in the sense of like, Neymar is healthy and he's gonna play, but Mbappe, he's shown what he could do. Like, in the World Cup, he like that France team with him in the front, like it was something else. So I think if not, I think if especially because he's injured, I think if we get a healthy Mbappe, that like I think he would be the key player because nobody can stop Mbappe if he's on. I really think Mbappe could be like the best. Like he probably will be the best in the world in a couple of years. So, I mean, I think if he's on, there's literally no stopping him. So, and also Bayern, as much as good as they are collectively, I think they also have, they're gonna rely in Lewandowski's goals. So those are two huge names, I think, besides the obvious, Messi. But there's a lot of big names right now. Manchester City, we got De Bruyne and even the smaller teams, but I think those are the biggest names for me.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just to reiterate my point. Although I do agree with Nico, I do think Mbappe is a bigger key player and the better player. It's just more so you know what you're gonna get out of him. When he's healthy, you know he's gonna be consistently a top player. It's more so when you get that inconsistency where you need to know what you're gonna get, and so that's why for me that biggest player is Neymar because if you get him consistent, then it's gonna be only good things for PSG. But an inconsistent Neymar could throw off the whole flow of that entire team. So that's why he was a big name for me. Although I
Oh yeah.
do think Mbappe is a lot better player, and also I think just as a whole, somebody that Nico mentioned earlier is the entire Barcelona defense. Because like he said, they're gonna put up the goals you need to score. They have a great front. They have Griezmann, they have Suarez, they have Messi, but on the defensive side of the ball where they've been struggling, they need to anchor down. Because like I said, Bayern's always been that team that is deep, and they have players on every position on the field that are gonna do what they need to do. And so when you have that attack led by Lewandowski, they're going to score their goals, especially against a struggling defense. So that defense really needs to figure it out, or it's really not going to be. It's going to look very scary for them in that one game.
I mean, from what you guys are talking
Yeah.
about, uh, especially with this one game, these quarterfinals and moving forward, it should be very interesting, especially with these key players having the history that they have in key moments. So, while with that, while we have you here, Nico, I know DC Stipe is coming up this week or this weekend. Do you have any predictions for who you have winning that fight?
I hate that you asked me because I really don't have. I don't know who's gonna win. I mean, it's so hard for me, but I like both guys a lot too, so it's hard for me to pick against them. But I think I think it maybe stupid. Just I don't know, man, because Stipe's wrestling
Pick
is
one
very
already.
good. So man, I don't know, man. I think I think I think Stipe might take it,
Oh
but
man, you're scared.
it's gonna be
Don't
so
be wishy
close, man.
washy,
Yes, I
man. You
am. I
gotta
Hey,
am.
pick one,
I
man.
have no confidence in my pick. No confidence in my
grow,
No,
pick
yeah,
grow,
at
grow
all.
some
it's
cojones.
I
tough.
really
It's
I don't know,
definitely it's
man.
definitely a tough one though. I mean, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I
They're
mean,
honestly
it's
both of
Stipe,
them.
it's Stipe,
No, yeah, it's
it's
it's a
Stipe.
tough match to call, especially considering we're probably talking about the two best heavyweights ever, which is not a far fetched statement at all. Stipe has defended the title
In the
more times
UFC.
than anybody in the UFC. In the UFC.
Yeah.
I know you're
You gotta
guy. I
respect
know I know
Emelianenko,
how you
man.
feel about your guy. But that's why I say like Stipe has
Yeah,
defended
no.
the title more times than anybody in that division in the UFC. Obviously we know what DC has done He's beaten literally everybody put in his way at every weight class, aside from John Jones. So we know how good he is. So it is a tough match to pick.
Yeah.
I do, surprisingly, I want Steep to win. I think that I'm gonna take DC here. I honestly think he's gonna end up getting the win. Um, he got a lot more, I guess, sure victory than Steep did. Although a win is a win. Um, DC just looked better in both fights, even though they came out 1-1. He
Yeah.
looked better. He looked more consistent. He stylistically, he looked like he matched up better against Steep than Steep did him. Um, so I honestly like DC in this one.
I'm I'm gonna have to agree with Jovan with this one. I actually have DC winning the trilogy. I know they both ended in knockout in the first two, but I think DC has looked better in both fights. Even the fight that
Yeah,
Stipe
yeah.
won, DC was winning that
Yeah,
fight.
yeah.
Just Stipe was able to make the adjustment and go to the body, and that's what ultimately ended that fight. Um, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna happen again. I think it's gonna be an interesting fight because with DC, him claiming this is his last fight of his career and him wanting to walk off in the sunset. Uh, it's gonna be very interesting to see how that goes. I'm not a huge DC fan. I mean, I like him more as a commentator than I do as a fighter because his fights aren't really that interesting. But the two fights against Stipe were really good fights, and there's always hopes, or I'm always hoping for that fight with John Jones at heavyweight, even though he's running scared of that. But we'll see when Dana
I will
White
be too.
tosses that money towards him because it's a big money fight. But I'm gonna go DC just for the simple fact that he's looked better in both fights, and he's gonna make that adjustment to kind of protect his body this time around. And Stipe is gonna have to make a different adjustment to win more rounds than just that knockout because he has to prepare for a fight just in case he doesn't knock him out this time because he didn't look that great in the last one up until the knockout.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys that he looked better. I literally just rewatched the fights like a couple of days ago. So yeah, like I agree, but at the same time, I think Stevie could have made those adjustments like faster. I think Steve is. I don't want to say he's striking in general, but I don't know. I just feel like he does have like a little edge on the striking maybe, and but the other thing is that like you said, DC he relies on his wrestling when he has to. He's a smart fighter. He's not dumb. So he might rely on his wrestling, and he might be too much for Stipe, but yeah, I mean I don't know why I just like Stipe. I just I like his way, like the way he fights. So like I don't know, but it was close anyways. Like second fight and the first fight was very short. So I don't know. I think he might take it this time. But like I said, I, I don't know why you guys made me pick because that's too hard of a pick to make.
I ultimately think this fight won't end in knockout as the first two did. I think it'll ultimately go the distance.
Yeah,
just because I think they're both going to be prepared and kind of avoid the mistakes that they made in the prior fights.
Yep.
But with that being said, we're going to say goodbye to you all and to Nico. Nico, before we go, is there anything you want to say or promote?
Yeah, not really, man. Just like always, just yeah, just happy to be here again. Yeah, I don't really have a favorite for the Champions League now that I want to win. So hopefully we'll just watch some good soccer and always fun to be here. So yeah, that's it, guys.
Well, we're always happy to have you. We're definitely looking forward for you to be back on the show. Hopefully next week, being that the fight is this weekend. And have you got back to training for your MMA?
Hopefully maybe this week, next week. So yeah. It's just I had Corona, man. The Corona is real, bro. It's real. It's not the 5G antennas, bro. so but yeah, no, I'll be back soon. I still work out at my house, but yeah, I wanna start soon. So I'll keep you guys updated for sure.
Nice.
With that being said, just like we always say, just follow us on all platforms at Boss D Podcast. we're now doing questions so that we can answer them on the podcast or even on our Instagram page. So leave us some questions on Instagram. And like we said, maybe you'll see it answered on our podcast and future episodes. Something that you want to hear us talk about, whether it be your favorite team getting a new player or, some breaking news of a player having a record-breaking game, or just anything in general in the sports world you want to hear us talk about and you have a question about, you want to know how we feel about it, ask us in the comments on YouTube, ask us on our Instagram page, ask us on any platform or on social media.
We'll leave our the links to our social medias in the description, so feel free to click on it and go to whichever platform you're most comfortable with, and just ask us there, and we'll definitely answer it either on the episode, like Jovan said, or on Instagram. So just stay tuned.
Peace. Till next time.
Deuces. All right, Nico. Love you.
All right, guys.
Thanks for doing this.
Be good, all right?
Appreciate you always.
Of
You're
course.
our best supporter.
Of course. Yeah, I am, bro. Number one.
All right. Talk to you.
Yeah,
Bye, guys.
when we get our first
See you
Balls
guys.
Deep merch, you're gonna get all of it for free. Yeah.
Oh, shit,
You're
bro.
gonna get our
Nah, bro.
first release shirt. We're gonna send you one, yo, Florida.
Oh, shit, yeah, I'm down, bro. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I like it everywhere, bro. You already know.
All right. I'll talk to you.
All right, bro. Peace.
All right, guys. Be good.
You're talking about balls deep.
I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.